Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist Peter Hum. We caught up with him on June 5th, 2020 to talk about quite a bit during this COVID-19 lockdown world of ours. Like his latest 2020 CD, Ordinary Heroes. He was born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, and has been a mainstay on the city's jazz community for almost 3 decades. Enjoy the story. Talking about the music is probably the best thing to do right now, so thanks for taking a minute out again. I appreciate it.
Sure, happy to.
Let's talk about Ordinary Heroes. You know, I think that it's kind of a special time right now to get music out because people have the latitude to listen to music, more time to, but you can't back it up live. Do you have any ambivalence about that?
Well, in my particular situation, I'm trying to look at the pros more than the cons, I guess, in terms of getting the music out to people. It's true that, I haven't had a gig since March 14th. I think that was the very last one. So it's been it's been gigless for the last few months, completely here in Ottawa and through all of Canada. Although I have done some online things, some online performances to spread the word about my music. On the other hand, I was really fortunate to have my, more than half of my tour did happen right at the it was the second week of March, so I got to play about 8 gigs with my sextet, which was pretty special, in 4 Canadian cities. We had a batch of gigs, and we got around, and this was all right at the, the very beginning days of COVID, so we could see the news, everything was just starting to escalate right at the very beginning. So we were fortunate to get 8 gigs out of about 13 of our tour happening. Hopefully we'll be able to go up to Eastern Canada, in the fall or next year. But it's all for the greater good, I guess. That's our take on things. We're all massively frustrated and trying to figure out ways to pursue music without having that social element happening. And I guess we'll just have to soldier on with that until things get a little more loosened with respect to the constraints of the times.
Well, talk to me a little bit about your beginnings in jazz. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how jazz became your life.
I do that at the risk of dating myself, I guess. I'm old enough so that, my first experiences of jazz, I guess, happened when I was, just a very beginning piano player, and I think it was the movie The Sting came out, which is, 1972 or 73, something along those lines, and it had ragtime in it. It had music by Scott Joplin, and I really dug that. And, probably like countless other kids and adults, I learned to play the entertainer on the piano and got deeper into ragtime, actually. And this is, of course, the jazz fusion era, not the ragtime era. So by the time I was in high school in the late 70s, again, like everybody else my age, the big guys for piano players were Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, and Keith Jarrett. So those were my heroes then, and they remain my heroes now. I pursued music in high school pretty seriously. And then when I went to university in the early 80s, I didn't study music, unlike some of my friends who I actually continue to play with to this day. But I studied English, but again, music was a very serious hobby. So what's come out of that since then is I have a day job. I have a career in journalism that I've pursued for the last 30 years. Strikingly enough, at one employer, at the Ottawa Citizen, which is the biggest newspaper in Canada's capital. But also in the last 20 years, I've done music on the side, and only actually gotten more serious about it in the last 10 years. And I put out 3 CDs, of which Ordinary Heroes is the most recent one. It came out, I guess, in full bloom March 6th this year.
Now that we're in this quarantine, no live music, and things have come to a halt,
what good memories of do you have that you're harkening back on playing live and being on stage? What's really kind of keeping you strong?
I was lucky, as were the other guys in my band, that we were able to go out on the road from March 6th this year to March 14th. It was a pretty ambitious undertaking as far as I was concerned, because I had to pull together guys from all over the place, if I can put it that way. I've been a bit impractical in terms of my own band. I don't have guys who live here in Ottawa with me in my own group. It's in fact a band that's made up of a guy in Brooklyn, that's Dave Smith on trumpet, a guy who's out in Eastern Canada and Nova Scotia, that's Kenji Ome on tenor saxophone. My longtime friend Alec Walkington is on bass, and he lives in Montreal. And on drums, it's another friend of mine going back to the 80s. Ted Warren is on drums, and he lives in Guelph, Ontario, which is about 6 hours drive from me. And then we had Sam Kiermaier on guitar, who's from Montreal as well. So everybody's, between 2 hours and, 17 hours drive or something like that from where I live. So I guess when you're asking me about pleasant memories, I guess it's the fact that I was able to convene this band thanks to grants that I received from the Canada Council for the Arts and the Ontario Arts Council. I was able to fly them in, and we were able to play that range of gigs between, again, March 6th to the 14th. So it's not something that happens often. I actually don't know when it will happen again, and that's not even taking into account COVID. It's just people are very busy, it's not something that I can self-finance all that easily given my situation. But we were able to get out, play music from the record for some good-sized audiences and appreciative audiences here in Ottawa, where I live. We were able to get to the main jazz club in Montreal called the Upstairs Jazz Bar and Grill, where some friends came out. And we played the top jazz club in Toronto, the Rex Jazz and Blues Bar, where, again, a lot of our peers came out to see us. Although at that point, the crowds were getting a little smaller because this was just, days away before everything was changing in the world, or at least North America, due to COVID. And we played one kind of final last hurrah gig, or if that doesn't sound too pessimistic. We played our last gig of the tour and the last gig of, the foreseeable future at a nice room in Kitchener, Ontario called the Jazz Room, which was a really nice way for us to go out.
When we do return to the stage and when the crowds return, what do you hope we collectively realize? Any realizations that we have, silver linings when we come back?
Yeah, I and a lot of friends of mine have a lot of thoughts about that. I know for our own part, it's going to be fantastic playing, the tiniest gigs for the smallest amount of people because, isolation can be pretty draining, and of course not just for musicians. So, once we'll be able to play just, in the same physical space with another human being, I have not had that simple interaction that I guess I took for granted. I haven't had that since, again, mid-March, and I don't know when it's going to come online again. Maybe we'll be able to do something in some people's driveways just for the fun of it later this summer here in Ottawa. But I think as much as a lot of musical projects, endeavors are going increasingly onto the web with people making, I call them layer cake videos, where, each musician does his part and then they're edited together. The music is made asynchronously, but then it looks like it's played together. As much as people are doing those kinds of projects or doing streaming or things like that, the live experience is still going to remain like the real special thing for people once that does come back. I really hope that that's going to be the case. I think the musicians are going to certainly experience it in those terms, and hopefully the people on the other side of the bandstand will take the same kind of or some similar kind of enjoyment from being in the same room and being present and being part of that musical experience rather than experiencing it through a screen.
So my final question is this: everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh gosh, this is usually I only tell my therapist the answer to that question there, Joe.
Right.
I'm just someone, honestly, in whether it's in music or in my home life or in my work life, I'm just someone who is hopefully for the most part trying to do his best at whatever is right in front of me. And I hope that I'm being considerate and kind and mindful of how other people are feeling and what their stakes are in the matters that are in front of us. That's kind of one of the notions that my record is trying to put forward with that title, Ordinary Heroes. I'm just hoping in this time when people are trying to come to grips with that question you're asking, when people are getting back to essentials, that they can refocus and try to be more kind and compassionate, because there is a lot of strife in the world, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get through our various struggles and get to some kind of better place. And I think that kindness and compassion will, and understanding other people will help us get there.
Right on. That was a great answer, man. Hey, thank you for taking a little time out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
Hey, Joe, that's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Canada, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Peter for his time, honesty, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.